It has been said that in order to gain something, something of equal value must be exchanged in return. To prove the validity of her own existence, there is no end to the lives that she would exchange. She is the enigmatic alchemic artisan, Leonora Botruvio. Welcome one and all, how's it going? I am Euclidean Vision, and today we're going to be talking about yet another sexy ladybot who you should probably be really scared of. The renowned omnic artist and likely talent associate, Leonora Botruvio. Now, I've had a strong feeling about this lady for a while, mainly as the potential philosophical questions raised as to whether an omnic could truly create art gels so nicely with the overall themes of the Overwatch universe, providing some compelling evidence as to the nature of omnics' comparative existence alongside humans, and an expression of their struggle for acceptance as truly living beings. And with the release of the Paris map detailing an upcoming gala at the Maison Marat, and some certain suspicious items within its walls, I've had a strong feeling of late that Leonora is set to be high on the list of upcoming heroes, or villains. Hosted at the Galleria d'Arte Omnica several times across the years, Leonora Botruvio is one of the world's forefront omnic artists, her work invoking insight into the nature of what it is to be a machine, exploring the interconnectivity of life and information, and providing a pillar of strength for omnic kind everywhere. However, her work seems to not only take the form of artistic expression, her mysterious benefactors evidently realise her talents for more functional works, from reparation to possibly even creation. A sensitive package is transported through the streets of Rialto. An unseen masterpiece from the Galleria makes its way to the sunken underbelly of Talon HQ, its true purpose yet unknown. And yet, art can also be said to have purpose and function, to express an ideal, to embody a cause. An unseen masterpiece stands in the Maison Marat, having made its way from the streets of London into the loving hands of the alchemic artisan. The guest of honour at Maison Marat's latest gala, Leonora Botruvio is set to deliver the coup de grace, the pièce de résistance, her latest work, her finest to date, a sculpture like no other. 100 arms of the Bodhisattva. Formed from the body and soul of Takatha Mondata, a dedication to those who would suffer out of compassion for others, a symbol for omnics everywhere, a symbol of revelation, a symbol of revolution. Now that involved a bunch of speculation, and it's not all definitely the case, but it works, right? Thanks to all the influences I had across the web into sort of designing this theory. If anyone wants a more in-depth exploration of the potential for her character, I've attached a short story below that aims to develop her motivations and her personal philosophy, something that I feel will be heavily prevalent in a character like Leonora. But now for what we're all really here for, let's dive right into her hero kit, starting again with her hitbox and her health pool. Now, I've primarily designed this version of Leonora as a support character, and I've tried to make her hitbox and health fit that sort of idea. As she seems to have a pretty slender body from the images we have, I imagine she will have a relatively consistently sized hitbox for a support, likely most comparable to Moira's similarly svelte frame. And so to keep her in line with the average support, I've just given her 200 health, and as several elements of her kit will allow for a degree of self-healing, I decided against giving her shields or armor or anything like that. It also reflects quite nicely on the comparisons between humans and machines that her health pool works in exactly the same way a human's normally does, as this theme is again likely very important to the character themselves. Primary fire, the Blooming Lotus, integrated matter transmutation device. Contained within Leonora's arms is a device of her own design, one of terrifying yet beautifying power. With the ability to comprehend, deconstruct and reform matter at her will, Leonora aims to mould the world around her to suit her whims, and to prove that all things, while transient, are definitely real, herself included. Using pulses of omnic energy to destabilize the molecular structure of her foes, the Blooming Lotus causes those afflicted to exude a biotic aura that heals Leonora's allies. The Blooming Lotus's fire acts as a linear projectile, dealing 40 damage per hit with no degree of spread. Firing once every 0.8 seconds with a projectile speed of 60 meters per second, Leonora's primary fire dishes out a half-decent amount of damage for the average support. With an ammo capacity of 10 and a reload speed of about 1.5 seconds, she should be able to relatively consistently be putting this damage out. And the main primary effect of this damage is each enemy hit will exude a healing aura from their player model that heals your allies instead of their team. Each projectile that hits an enemy will cause them to exude 16 HP per second for 2.5 seconds in a 5 meter radius, so taking 40 damage will cause them to release 40 healing over those 2.5 seconds. The projectiles from the Blooming Lotus do headshot, but that won't increase the amount of healing distributed, and they can obviously be blocked by defense matrix. Secondary fire. Fallen Petals, the Biotic Blade. Leonora throws out a returning cross-blade projectile that can be broken down into several smaller biotic shuriken by re-triggering the ability. Health taken from enemies hit by the crossblade is transferred to allies by the shuriken. Any remaining shuriken or the complete crossblade will heal Leonora upon their return to her hand. Fallen Petals again acts like a linear projectile, but once it reaches its max range, it will start to return towards Leonora's player model. The projectile will deal 100 damage on contact and will travel a max of 30 meters and will return to Leonora at any range that she reaches by that point. The blade itself will travel at 20 meters per second, but when this is re-triggered and turned into shuriken, the shuriken will fly faster at a 40 meter per second rate. The healing received from the pure blade will be 30% of the damage inflicted by Leonora's blade, and that only goes to Leonora herself, or if split into the shuriken, each shuriken will heal for 10% of the damage inflicted to whichever ally it hits. The cooldown on this ability is 8 seconds from the initial casting, and so maintaining distance from its max range can help you to activate the ability more often. A special feature of the Fallen Petals is that the projectile acts as a melee weapon, so it passes through both barriers and enemies and cannot be blocked by defense matrix. It also obviously doesn't headshot. First ability, Blank Canvas, the Transmuted Barrier. Leonora warps the ground in front of her, coalescing it forwards to knock back her enemies and elevate her allies as it grows into a protective physical barrier. Now this will work as a physical barrier as with May's Ice Wall, but will function slightly differently in its activation. It will take a second to deploy, and from activation will travel a maximum of 10 meters from Leonora's player model until it either hits a surface or reaches its full size, which will be 3 meters by 3 meters by 3 meters. So it will end up looking like a cube, but it will be shaped like a ramp, which will allow your allies to walk up and down it to gain access to high ground. The ramp itself counts as a single entity rather than May's separate ice pillars, and the wall itself will have a health pool of 600 health. When activated, it will damage enemies for 25 damage and knock them 5 meters from the final eventual point that the wall reaches, so you can knock enemies up to 15 meters away using this ability. Again, as with May's Ice Wall, if you find that the wall is in the wrong place or you wish to get rid of it, pressing the ability button again will destroy the wall. The wall can last for up to 6 seconds and goes on cooldown for 12 seconds from the initial cast time. I feel this ability is relatively balanced around May's Ice Wall, that each has their own advantages and particular uses within combat, so that Leonora doesn't exactly take May's place in any way. Ability 2. Astral Microcosm, the Biotic Barrier. Leonora reconstructs one of her favourite pieces, the Astral Microcosm, as a barrier for her allies. This barrier invokes the core tenet of Leonora's philosophy, that of equivalent exchange, as any incoming damage taken by the barrier will exude healing for the allies behind it. Activated as an arcing projectile with a health pool of only 300 health, the Astral Microcosm can exist for up to 12 seconds, and forms a 3x3 meter oval barrier at its final placement. Any allies 5 meters behind the barrier as it takes damage will receive an equivalent amount of healing, up to the max of 300. And the barrier itself goes on cooldown for 8 seconds from its final placement, just like Orissa's barrier. In this iteration of Leonora, Astral Microcosm and Fallen Petals, the alternate fire, would not be able to be used simultaneously, as Leonora would reform both structures from the same piece of metal that would be floating behind her back, resembling either wings or a halo. These two abilities can be used sequentially, however, cancelling the current use in order to manifest its other form. So you can have the Astral Microcosm suddenly turn into a flying crossblade, or the crossblade suddenly transform into the barrier shield. However, if Fallen Petals has been re-triggered to transform into Healing Shuriken, this ability takes priority and will complete its animations before any other related ability can be activated. Cancelling Fallen Petals into Astral Microcosm would also prevent Leonora from getting Fallen Petals self-heal. I applied this idea initially for aesthetic reasons, so as to maintain the idea of equivalent exchange and the conservation of mass, but gameplay-wise it's more so designed to prevent Leonora from gaining access to ridiculous levels of AoE healing, as with this method you can keep up your healing regardless of which you use, but choosing to focus on more offensive tactics with Fallen Petals or more defensive tactics with Astral Microcosm depending on the situation. And finally onto Leonora's ultimate technique, Return to the Earth, Biotic Transmutation. Leonora winds up her fist and punches the ground at her feet, letting her passion pour out in exchange for raw destructive power, crushing enemies in prisons of Earth and draining their life force to gift to her allies. A cast time ultimate with around a second of activation that can only be finally cast once Leonora punches the ground. The area of effect is an 8-meter radius and the effect will last for 5 seconds, rooting all enemies within range and transferring 50% of that present enemy's health to any allies present in the field across the duration of the 5 seconds, taking 10% of every enemy's health pool per second. As this could be a relatively powerful ultimate in its way, applying crowd control, damage and healing within its area of effect, the charge required should be relatively high, so I've designed it to take around 2,000 to 2,400 units of charge to earn the ultimate ability. So with a strong theme for her potential character and personality, and a kit that should sound something like a support version of Mei, I can see her filling a niche somewhere between Zenyatta and Moira, with a potentially high damage output that also enables her potentially high healing output. I for one feel there's a place in Overwatch's future for Leonora Botruvio. Am I right? Am I full of shit? Let me know down in the comments, and please like and subscribe if you do enjoy what I'm doing here. Thank you all so much for staying with me. I've been Euclidean Vision. Go in peace, my friends. May the glorious light of Best Girl shine within you. Goodbye.